If the world is a web, does that mean Varys created the world?
He's a spider. He's a spider. He's a Merling spider.
He's a water spider.
Exactly.
And welcome to episode 66 of the great linear reread of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. Martin. We are the Vassals of Kingsgrave, an offshoot of a podcast of Ice and Fire. As usual in this reread, there are no show spoilers, but we will potentially spoil events from the entire book series. Let me also remind everyone, including my fellow hosts, since there are a good number of us today, that the views expressed in this podcast are always those of the individuals and not of the OK as a whole. And let's try to stay focused and to give everyone room to speak. Also, I've talked about spoilers. I would say no TWOW spoilers here because I don't think there will be too many reasons to talk about the unpublished chapters, but if it comes up, we will be careful about it and give a shout out before we speak about it. And what did I mean to say too? Okay, so yeah, this is episode 66, but a few episodes have been recorded but are not out yet, so we don't actually know what has been discussed on this recent episodes. So apologies in advance if there are some things that have been discussed and that we discuss again here. So yeah, I'm Mary, also known as Nymeria on the forums, and today I'm joined by Hannah.
Hey, it's Hannah, shadowbaby on the forums.
Varley.
Varley on the forums.
Matt.
Blue armor on the forums.
Cool. Tanja.
Hi, it's Tanja, on the forums.
And finally, Alix.
Hi, I'm Alix, also known as Aiwendil on the forums.
And we might have Jock Monroe in a few minutes. Okay, good. So, episode 65 ended with Tywin's funeral in Cersei 2 from A Fistful of Crows. Today we will cover the prologue and Tyrion 1 from Dance and Jaime 1 from Feast. So, the prologue takes place a few weeks after the Battle of the Wall, and that's a jump of 38 chapters since Cersei 2 in Feast. It happens the next day on the 13th of February. So I believe it's a joint recap by Hannah and Jock, but that's going to be read by Hannah.
So actually Jock just wrote this, and I was too lazy to modify it in any way, because
if it's good, then you should take all the credit for it, because he's not going to do
that. It needed no modification, I didn't think, so all the credit does go to Jock for this. In the body of the wolf One-Eye, Varamir Sixskin helps the pack hunt down and eat a group of humans, 2 men and a woman with a baby. He remembers how his teacher Hagen had told him to eat human flesh was an abomination, though not a worse one than seizing the body of another man, and then he remembers eating Hagen's heart after taking away his, quote, second life, though he had never eaten human flesh as a man, because he's a good guy. He thinks of the wildling army's retreat in total disarray from the wall, breaking up into factions or succumbing to hunger and cold as they wandered, and thinks they were all doomed anyway, including the crows of the wall. The enemy was coming. He remembers all the times he died, quote unquote, while riding the body of a beast, most recently as the eagle, dying by fire, but knows his true death is coming soon. He had been stabbed by a young boy when he tried to steal the cloak of the boy's dead mother. Thistle, the last one of his companions, had left a few days ago to try and find food, but had not returned. The fire is out in his rude hut, and he struggles outside, calling for Thistle. He mourns that the great and feared Lord Sixskins has been brought so low. After the battle, he had lost control of all his animals, except the wolves, and finds comfort in the fact that they will probably eat him when he dies. He decides to go to One Eye when he dies. Hagen had warned him he will eventually lose himself in the wolf. Faramir regrets that he did not steal the crow Turncloak's wolf when he had the chance. He thinks of how he had done terrible things in his life, but the worst was to his younger brother, Bump. He had been inside the dog that killed Bump, which is why his parents gave him over to Hagen. Thistle returns and tries to get Varamir up, screaming that there are hundreds of them, and he tries to take her body. She screams and fights him off, clawing at her own face and biting out her tongue, and as he dies, he seeks out the wolf One Eye instead and finds him. He sees the village below where he died, and that it is crawling with blue-eyed shadows. And then he just quotes the last bit of the book here. So, the things moved below but did not live. One by one they raised their heads toward the three wolves on the hill. The last one was the thing that had been Thistle. She wore wool and fur and leather, and over that she wore a coat of hoarfrost that crackled when she moved and glistened in the moonlight. Pale pink icicles hung from her fingertips, 10 long knives of frozen blood. And in the pits where her eyes had been, a pale blue light was flickering, lending her coarse features an eerie beauty they had never known in life. End of.
Ooh.
That is a creepy chapter.
And I think that's the first indication we get of how quickly that shit happens, right?
Yeah.
How quickly you become a white. Yeah, absolutely. I had the same thought.
Well, Small Paul comes back after Sam, like, immediately after he dies, right?
Well, there's still, like, maybe a few days. I mean, is it really that immediate?
The opening prologue of Game of Thrones is pretty immediate.
Yeah, that's true, too.
With Waymar Royce, he almost immediately gets back up.
So, first chapter.
Yeah. Now you know exactly what's happening, and it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, like, this is the first chapter intense, that's the first chapter people read after, 6 or 7 years wait? Is that it? Or maybe a bit less, but anyway, a big wait, and you get that, and it's kind of confusing, like, that's the first chapter I ever read in English, because everything before I read in French. And I was like, what is he saying? What's a warg? And I mean, because in the writing, it's all confused. Like, Varamir is thinking about him in the same way he is thinking about his, beasts. And so it's hard to keep track, to what's what and what's happening. Didn't you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, totally. I mean, like, the description of their armaments and stuff, like, with the teeth instead of being sword or spear or stick.
Yeah, and also on that, I just noted that in the Bran chapters where he's in Summerskin, he does use the same language from the wolf's point of view, but in this chapter you have Varamir's voice, like, kind of hinting at the human words, like, kind of a voice inside the wolf's head that's reminding him of the connection that Bran doesn't have. So it shows how Varamir's way more experienced at controlling his abilities and being in touch with his creatures.
Yeah, but doesn't that seem like unfair? It seems like there's a whole community of wargs that he was raised by, and this guy, what's his fucking mentor's name? Hagen, like, really taught him how to control and, what the rules were and everything else, and Bran's just going, like, by whatever...
Oh, definitely. Bran's really good at it. I just thought it was cool that it was shown in the writing, like, just in the way it's written. You can tell how different they are.
I also wonder what it says about Arya, because when she dreams of Nymeria, Nymeria's a warged wolf that also has formed a pack, and so is One Eye. And I wonder if he, has made them have similarities intentionally or not.
I feel like that's not that strong a similarity, though. Because I guess for any wolf, it's kind of left to their own device, and unlike Summer, who's constantly with Bran.
Ghost is always doing his own thing.
Yeah, but Ghost is like the hipster wolf.
Yeah, Ghost isn't like the other wolves. He's not that social, and he doesn't make a sound.
Especially when he doesn't go into this. Yeah.
It's hard to tell because there's only 4 of these people that we're really looking at.
Yeah, I guess we don't have that much of a sample size. But to me, it doesn't seem that weird that a wolf who's mostly left to their own devices would join or become the leader of the pack. So.
And in Nymeria's case, it's a direwolf heading a pack of regular wolves, so it's pretty natural that she would be the leader.
Yeah, that's true. It is, though, funny. It uses the same language. Like, when Arya, in her dreams as Nymeria, describes it, it's her brothers.
Yeah.
But that's a recurring theme in the whole Stark imagery, that they are wolves and they have a pack and they have brothers, and I mean, it's the way George writes about wolves in general, not just, which we mostly see in wolves or direwolves attached to the Stark children, but it's still kind of a generic way to write about them.
But don't we see later that doesn't Summer best One Eye and take over the corpses of the brothers that Bran's eating?
Oh yeah, yes. Bran destroys Varamir's whole pack later on.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, there's a reference to Bran at the end of the chapter as the wolves see him riding the elk and all that.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. I didn't remember that.
I was trying to figure out exactly on the timeline, where they are right then, but it's in between Bran chapters. Well, they're clearly, he doesn't make mention of Cold Hands, but they're clearly on his elk north of the wall.
Yeah.
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 But it's in between chapters, I think, for him.
Yeah, and I think that's what they used to map out the location. The reread of this chapter is based on that passage, and it's probably just in between the end, the final Bran chapter in Storm, because they have to be pretty close to the wall at this point.
Yeah,
it is a bit an Easter egg, though. I'm not sure I caught it the first time I read it.
I don't think I did. I don't remember. So,
yeah. I didn't remember it specifically.
Yeah, next Bran chapter is 4 days after that, 4 or 5 days, and they are near Crastus, and they don't have food, and that's when they run into Faramir's wolves.
Does this chapter kind of, I guess, make the old gods the real gods, or is there still room for multiple religions? Because he kind of, when he dies, he goes into the trees and can see everything. Does that just kind of give that more importance and make that the lead religion, or does that not?
But I guess there's sorry.
R'hllor still has significant influence. That's how Mel burned Varamir in the first place. So
yeah, but is that just magic, or I'm talking like real religion? Because in R'hllor it's just him or the other, but it doesn't seem like Varamir died and went to like either to a nice place or a fiery place or a cold place. He just went every.
But is that like a regular death experience, or is it just because he's a warg that he can connect with all these beings? Because the trees are definitely connected to the crows and the ravens and the wolves when we're talking about what's his face?
Oh, that guy.
Blood Raven, yes. Exactly. Can't believe I forgot that. And
well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like I think that's the bigger question: is it just a werewolf or is it any living thing?
Yeah. So are we really talking about gods, or are we talking about some
nature,
like the specific magic that's related to skin changers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I would read it. I would read it as just that specific magic connection that they have, which may not necessarily tell us anything about it. I don't think this holds any truths about religion. So.
Yeah.
I'm also a many god truther, personally. So all of the above.
Okay, let me just introduce Jock, since he's here. So hello, Jock.
Hello, I'm so sorry.
It's fine. We've just started. We're still on your chapter.
Yes, I didn't remember Varamir was such a bad guy. Like, we get a lot of info on warging and on, like, how ethical certain aspects of it are and all of that. So we kind of get the feeling that he's not really bothered by ethics in any way. But in non-warging ethics, he was kind of a shit dude. Like, he talks about when he was really powerful, he would kind of rule as a tyrant, with several villages doing him homage, and he would just rape girls left and right and kind of live off of regular people, and doesn't strike me as a very nice guy, generally.
But that really stuck with me in the chapter. I remembered that. I remembered like how much of a gross creep he is.
Yeah, and I just remembered being creeped out by the warg stuff, but the real life stuff was also
isn't better.
Kind of creepy. Just all around not a great dude.
No, not really. No.
Yeah, but he's very similar to just Southern lords, like
Oh yeah, definitely. It didn't say other dudes weren't bad. Just that.
Okay.
He's also sort of a dark warden for Blan.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it brings us back to Bran, who is also starting to do these abominable things himself. That gives us a view of what he could become too.
And I guess that's quite interesting because I feel like with Bran, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't like displayed any similarly negative traits in real life, as a human, I guess. But I wonder whether being a warg makes it more likely for you to kind of have a lower ethics threshold while you're warging, and then taking that into your human life, if that makes sense.
Well, isn't that like kind of the dilemma of like the Invisible Man? Like, you have this power, and how do you use it without abusing it? Like when you have like all these new options open, and now you could do it, whereas before you couldn't. Like, would you, take a UB road?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for Bran, it's he's changed. He's not exactly, he's not his old self, because his old self could walk and he can't. But then he has this whole new area of possibilities with the warging, but the issue is, it's not like he loses himself when he is in summer, but he also indeed brings that to his real life behavior, because it does walk into Hodor, so...
Yeah, but he's never been I guess that's the difference between him and Varamir. Varamir was told not to do certain things, and he did them. Bran is just kind of figuring it out. Like, I don't know how ethical a 9-year-old can be, like, inherently. So...
Yeah, like the age thing is definitely a huge argument there. Cause, I don't know.
Definitely.
At 9 you might still be figuring these things out, and he hasn't had the most guidance, I guess.
Also,
but in general, in terms of the rules, I feel like most of them are fairly, like, if I suddenly discovered that I'm a warg and I had to, like, figure out how to go about this in an ethical way, I feel like all of those things just make sense. I don't feel like any of them are particularly far-fetched. I don't think it's stuff you'd necessarily need to be told, unless you're 9 and still generally maybe developing a bit of a sense of what is right and wrong. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Also, in the case of Bran, I think he also kind of applies his human relationships to his relationships with both Summer and Hodor, where, like, Summer's his pet and Hodor is a servant who's also mentally disabled, who, like, he's used to ordering him around, and I don't think he would ever consider warging someone else, another person than Hodor. At this point.
You could imagine in the future him kind of moving that threshold. But I agree with you. I think part of that is just him perceiving Hodor to be so far inferior, I guess.
Yeah, also, Hannah's raising a good point in the chat. She says he also had to take Hodor when he did, or they'd all be killed. And that is, it's also a question of life or death. Like, if you're going to be killed if you don't act, or if your wolf is going to starve if you don't eat a human, like, those rules would be kind of an arbitrary thing that it wouldn't make sense to break at this. If the need was.
But isn't that, like, just a survivalist instinct?
Yeah.
Like, you would be willing to do anything, like, whether it's, you know, if it was, like, my family or some stranger, that stranger's gone, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like, and it was clearly out of reflex, right? He wasn't planning on trying this out for fun or for torture
definitely.
or whatever. There was no malicious, or there was, like, no intention behind it, really. But I guess...
No, but you could argue that he could have done it once out of instinct, and then when he did it consciously, just kind of think about it and say, maybe not. But he does do it again willingly.
That's true.
And he feels that Hodor is fighting him. So that should be an indication that this is wrong. He doesn't want me there. But I agree that it's hard to, I guess, Bran is in such a new situation. He has nothing to hang on to, so that's hard to figure out what's okay and what's not.
And I also think this whole idea of crossing thresholds is really relevant to this, because because I feel like I can't imagine that he would ever, in a safe, like, if he'd never walked into a human before, I can't imagine that he'd ever, out of a safe environment, make that decision to try that out just for fun or whatever.
Yeah, like for fun, like a marionette, like being John Malkovich. He's not doing it because he wants to go have a walk, you know, like.
But then once you've done it once, under those kind of sort of emergency circumstances where it's maybe justifiable, I guess it's then much easier to justify to yourself doing it again once you've seen that you can do it. And
I don't even think it's
a dangerous situation.
I don't even think he's justifying it. I think for him it's more like taking, like, really good drugs and where he knows it's wrong but it feels like, for in his predicament, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid who dreamed of being a knight all of a sudden realizes he has this power where he can take over a huge, like, muscular, strong, walking person, you know, someone that can make that dream of being like a knight real. I think it's very alluring to him just to be able to walk around again. Like, I think a fully functional Bran would not have, after doing that emergency warging, would it not have revisited it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to maybe other things in this chapter, we also have a glimpse of the wildling situation after the battle, and first inklings to what's going to happen at Eastwatch. I mean, at this
Hardhome.
mother, exactly, mother mole person, and we can clearly see that without Menstruator, they just have no, nothing holding them together.
Yeah, it's not good for them.
Nope. Nope.
They're getting, they got spread out and now they're getting destroyed, and that's basically Jon's whole purpose, or why he wants them on the other side of the wall, because he knows that there's no unity there. That they know that, it just increases the army of the dead.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me when I read it of the Titanic, everyone going up on deck and then realizing there's no lifeboats and it's chaos, and just making that decision to go back to your cabin.
Yeah.
At least something familiar, because you're going to die. That's when he mentions people going back to their villages. It's they've got to know what's waiting for them there, but somehow that's at least.
Yeah, you'd rather die at home, right?
Yeah, and if they feel what else would they do if they just don't see any other options? They might as well just go there.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have anything else on the prologue?
Well, I guess we get confirmation that the woman who's leading people to Molestown does actually have some kind of prophetic power.
Yeah.
Because
it's a Hardhome.
It's Hardhome. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Mother Mole.
Names are great today. It's a very good day for me. No, because Melisandre has the same vision later, I think, of ships coming to take the people away, but they're slave ships.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we see them later, I think, in Dance. They arrived in Bravos, right?
Yeah.
They're slaves, so they got in big trouble.
I think so.
So Varamir likes to warg into the female wolf while she's getting banged by one eye. That's weird.
Well, to each their own, I guess.
Is anything he does normal?
Nope.
Well, he for sure killed his brother too. Then.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, well, that's normal.
Yeah.
What?
Where did that even come from? That sounds so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
He and the mountain have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, they should be friends.
Should have a club.
Well, they're both kind of dead, so that's going to be.
Yeah, how boss did Varamir feel in the wildlings, riding a giant snow bear? That's fucking awesome.
I mean, yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
I think that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Also, we don't have a lot of info on Varamir. Well, we get a little bit of his backstory in this chapter, but on him as a person, when we see him before with the wildlings, I don't think we ever get a description of what he looks like. He's just identified by his beasts. And one question I had was, how old is this guy? Because it seems like he must have been around for a while, because he got all these animals and he got really powerful and got a good place with Mance and all that. But it doesn't seem like a lot of time has passed. The way he talks about Hagon, it doesn't seem like a lot of time has passed since Hagon died.
Let's Google this.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tower of the Hand, and it doesn't really give an age.
Yeah.
He was 6 years old. He murdered his two-year-old brother.
Yeah, we don't know how long ago it is.
So he could be anywhere from 20 to 40, I guess.
His real name is
A wiki of Ice and Fire says Varamir is small, grey-faced, and bald with round shoulders, but that doesn't really tell us
anything about
really
his age.
This is an artist rendering, and he's super fucking old.
Could be. I mean, what kind of name is Lump anyway?
Well, that's the point. That's not
their little
not his
sister.
name.
Yeah, it's their, I guess, older sister. She names them while they're still with their mom.
Should we move on? Are you guys okay with that?
Kind of, yeah. Two more quick things.
Yeah.
We should just note, even though it's Tanya's least favorite topic, that this is kind of the whole basis for bringing John back. And then the other thing I liked was
we don't know yet if John is coming back. He's totally not.
And then the other thing I liked is Hagen's kind of mentioned that you shouldn't try warging into cats, although Arya does it pretty successfully later on not later on, but in Feast. So that was fun.
Oh, yeah, that's
I feel like his little bit about the warging into birds came from another novel or something and I want to say it was Kurt Vonnegut or something where they talk about men weren't supposed to be flying and you could get lost, you can lose yourself up in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, yeah. I mean, given this list, it's the only thing left is basically wolves. You have the feeling that that's the only...
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling that Hagon was kind of elitist when it comes to his choice of animals.
Yeah, kind of.
But yeah, I feel like the main narrative purpose of this chapter is probably to set up the possibility for John to come back.
Yeah.
Which I still hope won't happen, but it will probably happen.
Yeah, that and a vision of the future for Bran, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, can we move on to Tyrion 1?
Yes.
Cool. So that's actually the next chapter in the published order, and it takes place on the 14th of February. So that's a week after Tyrion killed Tywin. At this point, he's around 27 years old, and that's when he arrives in Pentos. So, who's doing the recap? Which Matt is it? Varley. Yeah.
Sure. So basically our favorite character becomes a despicable drunk and makes plans to take over the Seven Kingdoms with Fagon.
Done. Cool. Great chapter.
But he doesn't know it's Fagon yet.
What's that?
He doesn't know it's Fagon yet.
No, but it ends with a dragon with 3 heads, so he knows it's a Targaryen. And whether Aegon is fake or not, it doesn't matter. Illyrio Mopatis is disgustingly fat, and his cloak can be either used as a tourney pavilion or a ship's sail.
I
also, they eat some delicious food. Don't forget that.
Yes, and that's one of my favorite part of the chapter where he's like, whatever those fat women knew, they knew they were cooking. They knew how to cook. He also thinks about killing himself, either with mushrooms or by getting smothered to death with a booby as big as his head. He also remarks on Illyrio's sagging breasts and calls him a dead sea cow. Let's see, what else? Tyrion really makes a kind of turn in this chapter where he decides he does want to live, because he thought they were sitting down to poison mushrooms, and he stopped himself, and it just became a game for Illyrio because they weren't poison, they were delicious. And he said, might as well die with a taste of butter and garlic on your tongue instead of a sword through the mouth or with blood in your mouth. Let's see, what else? We just learned about his manse, Illyrio's manse. I don't know. There's not much here. What do you guys think?
So I believe, if I remember correctly, that this chapter was in the back of my copy of Feast. So
was it?
I think so. I think this is definitely the first chapter. I read this as a preview chapter before Dance was out.
Were there any changes between the Feast version and the Dance with Dragons?
I never compared them, actually. I think it'd be interesting. I should go and do that somehow. Because they're in a different country, the books, so I can't check. But yeah, I should check. I don't actually know. But yeah, so this was like my first glance at Dance, and I don't know. I remember liking it quite a lot, but I think I was just excited about
reading anything.
Yeah, and having Dance come out relatively soon at that point because I've finished.
Yeah, you're psyched to read like a Tyrion chapter in Feast.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't remember when I finished Feast, but before Dance came out, but not that long before. But yeah, it's not a very pleasant chapter. Tyrion doesn't come across as very likable in this, does he? It's a bit of a...
Yeah, he wavers between being like done with women and completely objectifying. He's like, all I care about is what's between your legs, and then he'll say like, oh no, I'm done with all females from now on, or I miss Taisha, or like I had to strangle Shay. Like it's really weird, and he's usually just he thinks about how he could take anyone in the manse because Illyrio said he could. So I don't know. He doesn't.
He's really broken, right? Like one of his first thoughts in the chapter is he doesn't dream anymore because anyway all of his dreams are unachievable, like justice, joy, happiness, glory.
Yeah.
And that's just so sad.
Yeah,
the whole of Clash and even Storm, he is bitter, but he is still trying to achieve something. And right now he's like, shit, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
That's depression, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what helps that? Drinking a lot.
Sure. Because alcohol is depressant. This seems like a fantastic plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of wine.
4 in 5 liquor store owners do recommend.
Yeah.
Actually, Varley, you said, so in your quote-unquote first recap, you said, so he's making plans with Fagon. One thing I did note is that, so we have no idea that there is a Fagon or even Aegon there, yet. And the very next chapter is actually Daenerys. So when in a TV show you hear about some plot
spoilers, please.
What?
No, in a TV show.
In a TV show. So it's like the cutaway, like they're talking about the person, and it's like,
like you
only
talk
they're
about a person and then you have a scene with them.
It could also be in a movie. It doesn't refer to anything.
Yeah. And I think that was very much like that. At least that's designed maybe to still make you think he's talking about Dany, because who else could he be talking about at this point?
Also, we know that Dany and Viserys were at Illyrio's manse before, and I think, like, when you're reading this, it's safe to assume that he's still backing them.
Yeah.
I like how Illyrio gives, like, no shits that he lost, like, 3 shiploads worth of, like, jewels and everything to Daenerys. He's just so, like, whatever, full steam ahead with another plan. Like, he is really a go-to guy.
He's just really loaded.
That's for sure.
For Cheesemonger.
Yeah. Very suspicious. Also, Tyrion notes at one point that he could live comfortably for several years off of just Illyrio's rings that he's wearing that day.
But he'd have to chop them off.
Yeah. A lot of fat shaming in this chapter.
Yeah, it's not good.
Nope.
I feel like, though, George is a fatty. I'm a fatty. If it was coming from a skinny person, it would offend me, but George is my overweight homeboy, so he has room to talk.
Well, when you're eating fucking, like, swan and plumage and stuffed, like, everything and fish and everything's, like, garlic and butter and, yeah. Like, you're gonna be a little fatty.
Also, like, how many courses do they have in this one?
Oh my god, like 9.
It's insane. I feel like I think so. I have the Feast of Ice and Fire cookbook, and like half of the recipes come from this one meal.
So it's not so much fat shaming as like the obscene amount of wealth that he has, where he literally does not have to lift a finger if he doesn't want to. He can get a servant to do it.
Are you talking about George?
Yeah. Maybe that's what's taking so long for T-Wow.
He's just rolling in cash.
He's got some servant. I said, Q. Do it again. No, but I mean, I think it's like a good demonstration of how even people as rich as Tyrion would look at this man and think, my God, you know?
Yeah. That's also, that's also maybe a good, like we are in unknown territory now, and the Free Cities are just not Westeros, and this is very clear in this chapter. Like, everything's different, the air smells different, and we are in a political system where this guy is important and he's obscenely wealthy and rich, and it's just it's very foreign to Tyrion.
Yeah, and even like he comes from the richest family in Westeros, he's still like, he doesn't like recognize the kind of wealth that Illyrio has.
Yeah, because it's not only the wealth. It's like even someone like Robert would be kind of like that, just eating and drinking and fucking, and but he still had some kind of like, he enjoyed going on a hunt, he enjoyed fighting, he enjoyed actually doing stuff too, and this is so something else for Illyrio. It's just he doesn't do anything. He just eats.
Yeah. Do you think he's like just kind of bored? Because first he backs Viserys. Okay, so he has the Fagon thing going on the entire time. Then he backs Viserys, and to do that, he sells Daenerys to Khal Drogo. And then when that doesn't work out, like, I don't know what his endgame was, then he sends Barristan and Strong Belwas to protect Daenerys, as well as 3 ships full of cargo.
Do you think that it's because he's concerned about the people accepting Fagon? So he thinks, well, maybe I'll give them another Dragon King first, and like Joffrey, he'll be a bastard and will need to be gotten rid of, but I can still then insert like my chosen horse.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he wanted the Dothraki to invade and further destabilize Westeros for Fagon, because he says, like, in this chapter, he's like, you know, the mismanagement of the entire kingdom has been so, like, poor. With winter coming, they're going to look for a savior. So was that, like, the end goal? Was that, you know, obviously it was Peter Baelish that started the whole Stark Lannister thing, but, like, I don't know. I just don't understand, like, if he just doesn't give a shit and is just having fun because he can, or if he is truly,
my thought it would be get somebody who's starting their Targaryen to sort of show up support with all of the Targaryen loyalists. Then Viserys mysteriously dies and Aegon appears.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, because what good would it do to the Targaryen cause to have yet another mad king on the throne, or just trying to get to a throne? I mean, and then you bring Aegon, and people are going to be like, yeah, no, we don't want Targaryens anymore. The last 2 were just terrible.
I've been there, done that.
I like how he calls out Tyrion for calling himself a lion. He's like, no, the prince has a real one in his menagerie. Maybe you want to meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how it makes Tyrion think about it too. Like, we do invest a little too much of ourselves in that shit.
Yeah, clearly. Okay. Are we done with Tyrion?
Where do whores go?
Yeah. God, this is gonna be annoying, isn't it?
It's like already annoying.
Yeah, it's already annoying for like 1 chapter.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be like that for the whole book.
And it's just a little bit too much. Like, I'd be fine with it being there as a theme and being repeated regularly, but I feel like this is the same as with a lot of these things in Dance, where it just needed tighter editing.
So,
it's not a bad idea, but he's just overdoing it so much.
So, one thing about this chapter that I picked up on, and I don't think I picked up on it ever before, was when he thinks about, right after he killed his father, he meets back up with Varys. He's like, I've killed my father. He's like, well, you shouldn't have done that. And he's like, I also killed Shay. And Varys, like, without skipping a beat, like, you knew what she was. Like, I found that very strange. I think What's that?
What's strange about it?
That Varys just wasn't, like, right. Like, it seemed like everything was expected. Like, I think he gives credence to the theory that, like, he was giving Tyrion directions to kill his father.
Oh, he definitely was.
Yeah, that's definitely what I believe it in.
Yeah.
I was like, no, but don't go that way.
Oh, no.
215. Like,
oh, no, don't do that. It's the third door on the left.
Don't go.
But he probably knew, he maybe knew that Shay was there too. I mean,
he probably
knows
knew
everything. Yeah. So he could expect that Tyrion would kill her as well.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that, but it seems quite likely that he knew that too. But
yeah.
It was definitely set up.
So
yeah. Also,
but at this point, Varys decides to, indeed, kind of help Tyrion kill his father. But that wasn't the plan, right? Because he didn't plan on freeing Tyrion, was he?
Who the fuck knows? Like, all these
exactly.
people are playing, like, fucking 12-level chess here. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, we don't really have enough information to get a good grasp on all this.
Okay, but he couldn't predict that Jaime
right.
would be coming to him to free Tyrion.
Right, yeah. So with the Tywin thing, I will say this, that they kind of go extensively into this in the recent reread, so we don't really have to cover it.
Okay, yeah.
But I wasn't on there.
Well, I had important things to say. But I mean, he might have had a plan, he might have had an alternative plan if Jaime hadn't coincidentally also come to him. So maybe he was planning to free him anyway, and then it's just...
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe he's a Merlin and has supernatural predictive powers.
That is also entirely possible. Or he found a way to, like, manipulate, like, to put that idea into Jaime's head or something. That's completely different.
Yeah, to go back to the where horrors go, repeating theme, I just wanted to note a parallel between this chapter and the Jaime chapter we're gonna read, where both of them have one sentence from their night in the dungeons / Tywin's chambers, that really sticks with them. Yeah. For Jaime, it's who Cersei's banging, and for Tyrion, it's wherever whores go.
Yeah, I had the same. That's exactly what I was.
Both chapters have this sentence that they keep going back to.
I think there's a lot of this in Dance.
There's a lot of it in Dance and also before, but in this case, it's a really strong mirroring between those two chapters. Which are the reactions of both brothers right after they have their conversation, where they realize all this stuff.
It isn't.
Yeah.
It just that's like Tanja said. That's a good idea, and that's a good parallel between the two brothers who are clearly, as we're going to talk about with Jaime, this is like something is broken between them, and their last encounter was clearly a tragic one. And things got out, and and words were said. And but then it gets like it's like this for the whole book, at least for Tyrion. I feel like for Jaime, there's maybe more an evolution, like towards he's grieving for his relationship with Cersei, basically. But it gets better, and with Tyrion, it's the only thing there is for the whole book.
And it cheapens it so much, and it's so much per chapter as well. If he only mentioned it like 5 times per chapter rather than 500 times per chapter, I feel like it would work a lot better. And that's
wait until we get to nipples on breastplates.
Also, my puppy ears. I have to done my puppy ears. Just can't read that. I'm gonna drop out of the reread when stuff happening, because, like, I don't wanna, shut up.
Okay, anything else?
One more note is that he's, like, really gross to the woman that sent him.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. He becomes despicable. Like, he doesn't get the scared reaction, so he goes even worse. Like, comes at her even worse until he gets that, like, he says something and it's like, and he smiled and got, like, a look of just, like, disgust rather than, like, scared revulsion or something that he's looking for. So it's just like, he's being a dick.
Yeah, he's really awful in this chapter. Yeah.
Also, he goes from, in his escape chapter, he's thinking about what his last words would be, and he's thinking about bugger you all. And he goes from bugger you all to planning which spikes he's going to put Cersei and Jaime's heads on, which is a pretty dramatic turn.
Yeah.
That seems comparatively fair to me, because it's quite extreme, but at least they've really wronged him, and then there's just this, but still, it's quite extreme.
So I found it shocking that he's like, obviously he's talked for books about hating his sister, and he's like, like her head would look good on a spike, like all tarred and like flies going into her mouth, and then all of a sudden it's like, but next to it should be Jaime. It's like, is it like just because of like the revelation that Jaime just told him about Tanja? Because otherwise, like he was like his best friend.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Which is a pretty big deal, to be fair.
And also, like, in the previous book, he hated Cersei, he hated his father, but he would still stand up for them because they were his family, and he was, like, it was the honorable thing to do for his family to keep his name and all that. But here, he just wants to kill them all.
And I got the impression he used to care about them on some level anyway. It's not like the best sibling relationship he's had with Cersei. But I got the impression that he cared about her on some level too, previously. And that's clearly gone, so...
Yeah, I think he really goes completely away from her after Oberyn's story. Or maybe after the Battle of the Blackwater, where he knows that someone, had him almost killed by a Kingsguard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, after everything, can you really blame him for just hating his family so much? I feel like for Jaime, it's a shame because, they were very close and he loved them more than he loved any of the others. But, if that had been, like, the only thing, if Jaime had revealed that in other circumstances, I think they could have talked it out.
You mean if the rest of his family hadn't already condemned him to death?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
The trial, his father, Cersei. It's just too much.
Yeah, I feel like if it was just that, and they'd had the chance to talk over a pint at some point in a safe situation, I'd probably be fine. But didn't happen with it. So.
Do you guys want to move on to Jaime?
Sure. Just real quick, the kind of two comments I found interesting were, I think actually, Illyrio does a good job of basically giving Tyrion a purpose in this chapter where, talking through his thoughts of suicide and then, giving him a mission to live for. And also there was an interesting quote, where he talks about, the world being a web and you have to, be careful, how you step on it and how it's going to affect everything, just to kind of show more of his planning thing, although it's still, impossible to figure out, like, what their overall goal is.
Mm-hmm.
If the world is a web, does that mean Varys created the world?
He's a spider. He's a spider. He's a Merling spider.
He's a water spider.
Exactly.
But yeah, also what you said about Illyrio giving Tyrion purpose in this chapter, it really does make a difference to like, Tyrion pretty much thinking about killing himself, and then going back kind of to his old habits of being intrigued and trying to, like, be part of all these machinations. So, good therapy for Lyria.
Okay. So we've began already to talk a little bit about Jaime, and I mean these two chapters really kind of go together. And it also, I mean, I think the Jaime chapter is a good follows well with that Tyrion chapter, and it also, like, in the actual published order, it comes right after Cersei 2, and it clearly continues the events in King's Landing. So that's 36 chapters before the Tyrion one, because obviously it's in Feast, and so Jaime has been standing vigil for his father for quite some time, and this chapter starts the day of the funeral. So I believe Matt is going to recap that for us.
Yep. And yeah, after, like, I actually did have to go back and read the Cersei 2 chapter. We really should have talked about these together as they go back to back. But yeah, here we go. This recap ended up being a little long, but here it goes. The Lord Commander stood vigil above his father's corpse, draped all in white. The golden greatsword rested point first on the floor, its hilt grasped by a solitary hand. He'd been there several days already, and he still had a few more to go. Two of his brothers had offered to relieve him, but it was not their father who was lying on the marble bier. Man, what is that smell? Is it my father? No, I've grown used to that by now. Is it my guilt over the role I played in his demise? No one wants to hear me whine about that. Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback. Jaime recalled how he forced Varys to help free Tyrion. They all, they had drugged the guards and escaped through twisting passages beneath the castle. Varys is unfortunately still missing. All the guards had found in their search was that Targaryen mosaic on the floor, and no one feels the need to undergo an extensive project to map out the secret tunnels in and out of the castle. Even earlier flashback. Jaime recalled the day Rhaegar had marched for the Trident. He wouldn't let Jaime join him in the battle and promised there'd be some much-needed changes when he returned. Oh, what a story might that have been. But it does no good to speak of roads not taken, remarks Jaime as he looks directly into the camera. Back to the present. Lord Tywin's smile continued to grow wider. Perhaps he was laughing at the way Pycelle looks like a shriveled-up chicken without his beard. Even more backstory. Pycelle recalls when the Great Plague killed half of Old Town and 3/4 of the Citadel. Quentin Hightower quarantined the city, probably saving the rest of Westeros, but the small folk killed him anyway. Back to the original flashback. Rennifer Longwaters recalls what he was like when he was just a tad of a lad, and believes he is the descendant of Aelena Targaryen. He also reports that Rugen, a.k.a. Varys, has also been in charge of the Black Cells since Aerys' reign. There's a reference to Jack and Company, and Jaime thinks that the Crown spends way too much money on the criminal justice system. He also finds out that his genius sister ordered the Kettleblacks to kill the two guards Jaime has drugged. She's been fucking Moonboy. She's been fucking Lancel, Osmond Kettleback, and Moonboy for all I know. Man, who the fuck said that? It's me, your conscience. Okay, well, can you leave me alone? I'm trying to regale the readers with some backstory right now. No! Come on, man. I need to hint at my growing attraction to Brienne, talk about when I was knighted by the Sword of Morning, and I have all these fascinating stories from the White Book I can talk about. Too bad! I'm going to repeat this phrase over and over again throughout the rest of the book. Isn't that going to annoy the shit out of the readers? Hell yes! Well, is it at least going to be limited to just my POV chapters? No, it's going to happen to almost every character in Feast Dance. Jesus. I really should have not committed to this whole 7 days thing. Thankfully, this hallucination is interrupted by a hooded figure. Jaime finally takes note when her green eyes flare in the candlelight. Do you remember the first time I came to you like this? Jesus, Cersei, do you have any idea the arguments we sparked during the last funeral we attended? Fine, we'll skip that part. Will you at least be my hand? Nope. Fine, fuck you then. Go swing your sword in the Riverlands. Fine, I will. Fine. Lord Tywin found this exchange so amusing that he gave them a drive-by before Cersei left the Sept. The Septons attempt to mask the smell with their homemade Febreze, but it doesn't work. As the ceremony starts, note that this is somehow a different ceremony from the one that occurred in Cersei's chapter. Jaime quickly realizes that Marjorie will be a much better queen than his sister. Jaime's stoicism finally cracks as Tommen begins choking on the stench of the rotting corpse, and he jumps into dad mode. Sir Osmond, relieve me! He gets all of 2 seconds with his son before Cersei interrupts. Unfazed, Jaime gives her one more piece of advice that she will ignore, and then takes his leave. Chapter.
Oh my god, I'm so happy
well
you
done,
did
sir.
that.
And you just seen through all the
Bravo.
chapters of the entire Reread campaign.
So, you didn't mention that when Jaime talks to Tommen about going away in his head, Tommen's like, oh yeah, I did that when Alix come in.
That was the most interesting
you're right.
sentence in this whole chapter.
Yeah, that
I
was
feel
the
like.
creaking door for Tommen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You creep down. So bad.
Do you think it's sexual or
Yes.
quote unquote just physical?
I think it's more physical, given what we know of Joffrey, but...
I mean, either way, it's really horrible. and gross.
Either way is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and feel free to cut this out, but I do think that, like, rape's not sexual, it's violent.
Oh, definitely.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, you're right.
But I always read it as some sort of sexual sadism was immediately what came to my mind when I read it. So.
Yeah, I think he was Euroning Tommen.
Yeah. Especially just because, like, he would have been in his puberty and exploring anyway, and then he's a psychopath.
He's a sadistic fucker.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, too, to, like, be hitting him with a bag of oranges or something, too, just to, you know, cause him pain because he wants to, like, yeah. But that, the first time I read that, I was like, holy shit, what?
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, you cut him off mid-sentence, what?
Yeah.
Like, wait, I want to hear this.
That was one of the biggest, Cersei, shut the fuck up. This was important.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually a bad passage, I felt like. Just Cersei shows up and this little very short bonding moment between, well, either father and son or even uncle and nephew. And like in the 3 minutes that Jaime had alone with Tommen, you could see more compassion and understanding and kind of parenting than everything that you see from Cersei towards Tommen. And that's just the way she treats him. It's just awful.
I know. And he's gonna die, and she's gonna be like, oh, it's all my fault, or like, oh, like, there's a prophecy, and it'll all be about her, and we're gonna be like, what the fuck is Sir Pounce gonna do now?
You mean... Oh yeah, he'll just go join that cat that's Rhaenyra or whatever.
Also Lady Whiskers.
No, wasn't the cat named after the dragon?
Valerian?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was Balerion, yeah.
I'm
the black
better
one.
at remembering cats' names and people's and places.
Lady Whiskers, Sir Pounce, but Tom didn't.
No, he has one more.
He does?
Yeah, I think he has 3.
Yeah, Lady Whiskers, Sir Pounce, and...
The kitten has 3 heads.
There it is.
Yep.
That's the one. Nailed it. Dude, I need a shirt that says that.
We all do.
We should get podcast t-shirts.
That'll be the official
Can
Vassals
someone
of
draw that?
Kingsgrave.
A kitten with 3 heads?
Yeah.
Can the episode be called The Three-Headed Kitten?
I mean,
I think
yeah,
it's
it's in the contenders now.
Put it on the shortlist. Put it on the shortlist.
We should have a poll to vote
There were
for
other
the,
good ones. So
for the title idea.
Please consider it.
Oh, the other cat's name is Boots.
Yes! Boots.
Which was the name of my grandma's cat, Boots.
We had a cat, Boo.
Is your grandma Tommen?
My grandma's long dead. And probably so is Boots.
Probably.
Oh, Boots. I love this.
Yeah, my dad's cat, he had a cat, like, before he met my mom. That cat lived to be, like, 27 years old, and her name was...
Holy shit, 27?
Her name was Bootsy. Yeah, he found her as, like, a tiny kitten. He was drunk in a bar. And
So she might have been, like, 10 years old already by then.
Yeah, he went out to, like, get, fresh air, throw up or whatever, and it was raining. And he, like, slumped down on the side of the building and heard this meowing. And he looked up, and this little, bedraggled, tiny kitten is walking over to him. And he scooped up and put her in his coat pocket and took her home.
I want the kitten in my coat pocket.
So,
That's a very cute story.
in a similar story, I met up with my buddies yesterday for birthday drinks and everything, and we left and we went back home, and then we start getting text messages that they're hammered and buying betta fish. Because the thing to do when you're drunk is to get pets.
Obviously.
Yeah. And tattoos. And tattoos for your pets.
Don't do PSA. Do not do that.
PSA, do not tattoo your pet.
Listeners, it'll be okay.
Okay, so what do we have to say about Jaime? Go, guys.
He's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, who thinks they can stand anything for 7 days straight? Jesus Christ. Like, know your limits. Like,
anyone can stand anything for 10
majority.
seconds, and then you just start over again.
That's a good point.
No, I mean, if he was doing all these flashbacks in his head the whole time, he's keeping himself entertained.
Well, he's like Ned in the Black Cell, right? All he has is, like, memories, and like, there's nothing else he can do.
Also, there's a memory of Rhaegar thrown in there.
Yeah.
I don't really know why, because it doesn't really bring anything to this chapter, but...
Well, because that's what, like,
apart from backstory.
I think that language was the reason why the whole theory behind, like, turning at Harrenhal thing was that Rhaegar was going to take over power from Aerys, right? Because he leaves and says he changes, and we're all supposed to be like, what?
And that he meant to do it long ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it also goes into the theme of Jaime remembering himself when he was a young knight, very hopeful and with his whole life in front of him, and now he's the Kingslayer. And we can also, like, there's some admiration for Rhaegar in this story. I mean, it also serves to, as everything we hear and read about Rhaegar is about how awesome he was and how everything would have been okay and good if he had taken his father's place earlier. So that goes into that as well.
Yeah, but if Rhaegar had let Jaime come with him, then he would have saved his house.
Well, I think the direct consequence of that would have been that King's Landing would have blown up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's true.
Unless someone else stopped him.
Yeah.
Right, I don't know who else was there. But yeah, maybe Varys.
If one of the other
stopped
Kingsguard had bbeen there and had figured it out and had done the same thing. And if.
Right.
Guys, Boots likes to chase scraps of fur that's tied to the end of a fishing pole that Tommen moves around.
Oh,
It's cute.
And that Sir Pounce catches a mouse, but Lady Whiskers steals it from him.
That little bitch.
And of course, when Tommen tells Cersei, she says, Sir Pounce must learn to defend his right. In this world, the weak are always the victims of the strong. Jesus Christ, Cersei.
Of course Cersei would fuck that up.
Come on.
Such an endearing story.
She's terrible. She just, so in the Cersei 2 chapter and in this one, both Kevin and Jaime actually give her some good advice about the Tyrells and how to deal with them. Like, I mean, Kevin advises her to make either Rendell Tully or what's the other one?
Oh, we talked about this on the reread.
Rowan.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but yeah, Rowan. Yeah, and
You were missed.
oh, and here Jaime also has this. I'm thinking, all right idea to send Mace Tyrell away to fight, and Cersei is just I mean, she actually listens to Jaime's advice, but for everything
I think
else.
she hears it. I don't think she listens.
Well, that's what she does afterwards, doesn't she? Doesn't Mace Tyrell
Right, yeah,
isn't he supposed to leave for Storm's End at some point?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does.
He comes
Yeah,
back
but doesn't
after the trial, but
Homeboy ends up going in his place, right?
No,
he's
Loras goes to Dragonstone.
right, but in general, she's like, I mean, her small council is it was doomed from the start. Like, she really should have, even though they were scheming, like, the Tyrells needed to be part of the government in some way.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, I don't root for the Lannisters, but I root for some kind of peace somewhere, and so we don't want them to win, but at this point, I'm still annoyed that Cersei wouldn't see reason, because it's just such a mess all around, and then Kevin dies, and then, so it's still annoying to see her not listening.
Yeah,
but anyway.
and Cersei's not only fucking things up for the Lannisters, she's fucking things up for everybody.
Including her son, which
by
is just
refusing
sad.
to include everyone in government and all that. And also being shitty to her son. God.
The worst mother ever.
Yeah. She's like, Joffrey was willful, but Tommen is like weak. It's like, what?
Yeah, I know. She's praising Joffrey over Tommen.
Joffrey was an ass.
Fucking
And she's
stupid.
doing that in front of Tommen too, like.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we had just a whole episode like, we need to talk about Tommen and how adorable he is.
Yes, please.
I think
Yeah.
I find it really surprising how it turned out that way.
Tommen is
so
a
sweet.
gift to us all.
Because I think he's been more ignored, like, up until now. Is probably why he's as good as he is.
Yeah, but even if he has been ignored by Cersei until now, he hasn't been ignored by Joffrey, apparently, so even that should be traumatizing. Yeah.
And also ignoring kids isn't necessarily the best way.
Yeah, obviously.
To be sweet.
Well,
people.
I don't know. If your parenting is as bad as Cersei, maybe being ignored is beneficial.
I think that's the best you can hope for, right, with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're being taken care of by other people at court who treat you well because you're a prince.
More fucking sociopaths?
Or sociopaths.
Yeah.
It really could be either, like, flip a coin.
Okay, we shouldn't talk too much about Cersei because indeed it was in the previous rereads. But nevertheless, about the relationship between Cersei and Jaime, I think it's revealing that Cersei never thinks that she is betraying Jaime when she sleeps with other men. It's like, it's not a big deal to her. But on the other hand, Jaime just feels so betrayed by this relation, and he's suffering. Like, you can see that it really, in his head, he was at least faithful to her, and so just it's another thing that just shows us the how everything is unbalanced in their relationship.
But he's still, like, despite this new knowledge, and despite her being shitty to him, like, even when he's in the Riverlands, he's, like, thinking about her and, like, having to get home to her, and...
I mean, he thinks
it's not
about...
that easy to get over someone, right?
Yeah.
If you have a partner that cheats on you, that doesn't, like, plenty of people stay with partners that cheat on them.
Yeah, but they're not your sister.
Yeah, Sure, but he does seem to. That is true, but he does.
But that doesn't make the.
So.
Yeah, it doesn't make the breakup, if you allow me to say it like that, any easier. Like it's even worse because she is her sister, and he is committed to her in every way possible until then, and he's only now starting to break away from her, so obviously he's going to think about her. But he does choose to go away and to go fighting in the Riverlands instead of staying in King's Landing, which he could have done. So,
well, I think he's got a little battered spouse syndrome too, because she's so abusive to him.
Yeah.
And he just takes it repeatedly, and even in this chapter, she's like, I need you with me, in me. And then he's like, no thanks. And she's just like, you fucking idiot, I never liked you, you're so useless. Immediately turns on him. It's horrible. She's a monster. I love her though. What a great thing about her.
Exactly.
You can't not talk about her.
Yeah,
I love it.
Every episode. That's very true.
Overall, this show. Oh, go ahead, then.
No, I was just going to say a very important fact that the Boots, Lady Whiskers, and Sir Pounds are listed on the house for that. So.
I think that confirms the three-headed kitten theory.
But overall, this chapter kind of does a good job of setting up Jaime's arc for the book, as going to the Riverlands was definitely the correct call for him, as it helps him, move past Cersei, and you can see it at the end of the book when he, refuses to answer her letter for help and goes to Brienne instead. So.
Yeah, she really oversells it though. After telling him to go fuck himself and he's a stupid fool, she's like, I love you though. Come back and die for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can have the honor and privilege of dying for me. Happy anniversary, honey.
About the Lannisters' siblings in general, we also have, this is also the breakup with Tyrion at this point. So one thing I found really sad is that Jaime now believes that Tyrion killed Joffrey, when he was actually one of the few who still kind of believed him innocent before. So
does it matter?
After he kills Tywin, I'm not sure that it matters, because that he evidently did. But still, I find it sad in general that the only person who still kind of believed in Tyrion now maybe not hates him, but believes he's a monster too.
And also in the same way that Tyrion has essentially, not quite in the same way, but in a similar way as Tyrion has essentially lost everything, Jaime has just essentially lost both of his siblings who he had a very good relationship with, pretty much at the same time, and that's quite sad.
Yeah.
And his father as well. So.
Do you think they will be reunited at some point? Jaime and Tyrion?
Yeah, I think that's necessary for their character arcs.
Yeah.
I think they'll run into each other. I don't know if they'll get a chance to make up or anything. I don't know.
Do you think they'll, Tyrion will bring his battle axe and they'll have a fight?
That would be a funny one too.
That'd be great. That'd be hilarious.
Probably.
The dwarf for the cripple.
Which is the final scene in the last book.
I think Tyrion thinks about that at one point, right? Where he thinks Jaime lost his hand, so now we would actually be evenly matched if we were to fight.
Yeah.
Which is probably not an accurate assessment, to be fair, but...
Yeah.
Or more interestingly, since going by this chapter, that Jaime's claim that he's a bad politician seems to be not as true as he thinks. So maybe it could be a sort of battle, just more along one of wits rather than of swords.
Oh, no. Come on. Jimmy has a grown-up thing.
Let's do a poetry slam.
I would pay to see that.
Play full contact Cybos together.
That's the final showdown in the last book.
Who knows? Maybe Jaime has some octane powder.
Some octane? What is that?
Princess's Bride.
Oh, Iocane.
Oh. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree, actually, Jock, that Jaime is not as bad a politician as he thinks. Contrary to Cersei, who clearly believes she's so clever.
Yeah, his scenes at River Run, and then with the Brackens and the Blackwoods later on in these books, they're pretty cool. I enjoy them.
I enjoyed most of Jaime character arc. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real shit in the first book, but then...
Yeah, but we don't have a POV in the first book, so you can hate him, but you don't have to not enjoy reading him. And as soon as we get a POV, even though he's still kind of a jerk with Brienne mostly, he is enjoyable to read, whatever you feel about him. I mean, to me, at least.
Right, but yeah, it's still mainly his hand getting cut off. I mean, it's the same thing with Sansa, where she becomes much more interesting. After she's able to leave King's Landing, and Jaime becomes better after he loses his hand.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a lot more to say?
Well, I guess this has been talked about on the previous episode with Tyrion killing Tywin, but do you guys think Tywin had been poisoned beforehand? Because most of the evidence for that is in this chapter. Or supposed evidence, because he's particularly smelly. Yeah.
I'm not. I don't feel strongly either way. I don't feel like it matters.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, absolutely.
No, it definitely doesn't matter that much. But
yeah.
Yeah.
By
it's just one of those things.
Varies.
Yeah.
I think
or
the theory is.
Oberyn or whatever.
Varys or whoever helped him orchestrate all of this.
But yeah,
or doesn't that kind of Tywin symbol, like sort of like his whole political thing?
Maybe he got a real bad STD from one of the whores, and that's what's making him smell.
Possible.
Yeah, we'll never know.
I think Shay was planted, but that has presumably been discussed in the...
I'll tell you what's not in episode 65 is that when the bad cat came to Tommen, Sir Pounce hissed at him, chased him away.
Have you guys seen this video of the little boy that gets attacked by a dog and then his cat comes and saves the day?
Oh yeah, dude, that cat. There's like a pit bull running at this little kid, and they have a security camera outside their house, and this cat comes out of nowhere and just like ninja lightning kicks this dog in the face. What saves this little baby?
Yeah.
He's like maybe 3, you know.
Oh my god, Sir Pounce is in the show too. Sorry, short spoiler.
I can look at that. Damn it!
Yeah, Sir Pounce is in the show.
Major spoiler warning.
Damn it.
But because of budget constraints, Boots and
Lady Whiskers
are not in it.
Which is great. That's why I stopped watching.
Like Sir Pounce's Benjen warging.
No.
Just don't think about it too hard.
Probably true.
Well, there is a theory along those lines, isn't there? Where that old cat Arya
There's theory for everything at this point.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, Valerian. Yeah. Oh, I had something about the chapter. I had something about the chapter that was actually relevant. So when he's talking to the chief underjailer, we learned that Varys was the one who released Jack and his friends.
Well, I mean, it was
Rugen.
Well, no, Ned ordered them released.
Yeah,
to be sent to the wall.
But Rugen knew about them, and Rugen is Varys, and so does Varys know that there was a faceless man in the Black Vale.
I guess it could explain how a faceless man got captured.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I propose that maybe we officially close off, and we can keep chatting if we want. I can do the outro. Unless anyone has anything left to say about either chapter. No? We're good?
No.
Alright, cool. So next episode we'll cover Cersei 3 in Feast, Tyrion 2 in Dance, and Sansa 1 in Feast. That's gonna be a good one.
Yeah. Sansa.
Yeah, exactly. I love Sansa. I don't know who will be hosting that. I think it's Bina, but I'm not sure. Does anyone have upcoming podcasts? Or, I mean, I have no idea when this will be released, because there's quite a queue before it, but still, if you have anything to mention.
We recorded the Doctor Who cast a couple days ago. And
Friday night.
Yeah. It went very late, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, we recorded an episode of Mindhunter, and where we kind of took a closer look at the serial killers represented in that show. And that is mine to edit, which I haven't even touched yet, so who knows?
So who knows? But I'm excited to hear it, actually. I love the show. I didn't join on the cast because I didn't feel like I had anything really interesting to say, or I'm not sure I wanted to actually research serial killers and that, but I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, and we just it came out a week ago, the follow-up number 3, where Bina tells us the story about me and Jock, the story about the killer of Gianni Versace. That's a fun listen if you want to.
Yeah, I love the
Hopefully we'll be doing more things.
The episode about Serial that we recorded 20 years ago has magically resurfaced and was released recently-ish, and I have nothing to do with the new one today.
Just saying.
That's probably worth listening to, but I honestly don't remember because it's been quite a long time. But Casey really liked it, so I guess listen to it, please. Thanks.
Yeah, Bina said she really enjoyed it too. Like, for being how old it was. It was like, oh yeah.
I like to listen to Serial before I actually listen to your Serial
that's
podcast.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
You should. Serial's very good to listen to. But yeah, I feel a little bit bad about this. I feel very bad about this. I'm crying myself to sleep when I suck at getting things done. So, but now it's out, so yay!
Yeah, so find us on YouTube, Facebook, WordPress, iTunes, Twitter, Instagram, anything you want. But if you really want to get involved, you can chat with us or even join the group. And for that, you can search for a podcast of Ice and Fire forums. And so, yeah, get involved and tell us what you thought of this episode in a nice way. Thanks, everyone.
We only
for
want
listening.
positive feedback, thanks.
Yeah.
For polite negative feedback.
Yeah, polite negative feedbacks.
Just
works.
positive feedback, please, thank you.
Thank you guys for joining me. This was fun.
Yeah.
Sir Pound says bye.
You did great.
Bye, Sir Pound.
Bye, Sir Pound.
Bye, boots.
saying that I never say Alix's name like I would say it in French, and it's always I always have like a slight hesitation.
How would you say Alix in French? Like, Alix. Alix.
Yes, but I never say that to English-speaking people because I hate when the accent is on the second syllable, so please call me Alix.
Okay, great.
We just don't have that problem in French, because there's no accent.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
Also, on a literary note, I mean, this is very similar to, the warging, to what Fitz does in. I've read only this in French, so anyone read Robin Hobb stories?
What?
Robin Hobb. I have.
Robin. So what, like the Fool series?
Well, the Fool, the Long Series, and the. Yeah, let me Google it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
some of our listeners have to make a point.
Yeah, reader.
But I haven't read them.
I'm sure some of you guys have read it. You're just, the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not read it.
There's a lot of, and the original one was the Farseer trilogy. Anyway, that's a good fantasy series actually.
Yes.
Robin Hobb. I really like what she's written. But the main character is basically a warg, and it's the same kind of discussions as to you kind of lose yourself in your animal, and spoilers ahead, he is kind of saved by living in his wolf for a while before being brought back. So, yeah. So same thing, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
What's that? It's the smell of a bat.
I think this could be the title of the episode.
Yeah, I've noted a few since we started. I'm thinking, yeah. I have the hipster wolf and Varys is a water spider for now. But I'm gonna add that.
Hipster wolf. Great.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
Okay, so I have the hipster wolf, Varys is a water spider. What's that? That's the smell of backstory. The kittens are 3 heads, and poetry slam battle.
I think
Lannister poetry slam battle.
Yeah, Lannister poetry slam battle.
Well, sounds like a successful podcast then.
Poetry slam
Perfect.
Yeah. Those are ideas either for the title or for the bumper.
I like the smell of backstory. Yeah.
Sir Pounce deserves to be the title of this podcast.
Well, we've talked about him probably more than we've talked about Jaime.
I like the smell of backstory for the title, but I think... What happened?
Jock just posted in chat.
Oh, shit.
That probably can it be the art, the picture for the episode?
Okay. Yeah. Can we Photoshop Faramir on top of the cat? That would work really well.
At least it would be in the theme if we did that.
Yeah, I guess it makes it slightly more relevant. But I think I'm a good idea.
Before we go, did you guys read George's post about not being online anymore until shit gets done?
Yeah. But he's
give me false hope.
Yes. Blood.
What do you guys think?
I think it's about the Fire and Blood thing.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not get my hopes up.
A monkey than not.
But I do think it's also a sign that he wants shit to get done, and I mean, even if that's fire and blood for now, it's a sign that he knows, obviously, that this is getting long.
Well, I don't mind reading Fire and Blood. Like, it'll keep me occupied.
That's good, like, 1,000-foot view of Targaryens for me. Like, we don't need to see more in depth. Like, get the fucking series done.
I mean, it might help him for what it's worth, because writing isn't as linear or progressive.
I'd rather have a Fire and Blood than another friggin' Wildcard book.
Right, yeah.
Gumming up the works. My biggest thing right now, I think that we'll get TWOW in 2020, and I believe that he is specifically waiting for the show to finish, and he will make changes to his arcs based on whatever disaster's going on there. And retake it as his own thing. That's honestly what I think, because I think he had a lot of it done. We have 11 friggin' chapters of it out as previews. It seemed very rapid. No, sorry. It seemed like really at a rapid pace coming out. At one point it had an ISBN number for Europe, like registered to it, and then suddenly that was gone. And I think it's because the show became very different and took over his vision, and he has said some like little nuggets in interviews that, to me, that's what he's saying is they can be done, do their own thing, and I will be adding twists and things that the show's not even going to be able to do because it's so different.
Well, he can do his own thing in parallel. Like, I want him to do his own thing. I don't want him to be influenced by the show, but he can do that in parallel. We don't have to wait till after the show. Okay, I don't, because I'm not even watching it.
Right, yeah.
That's where he's at, though, creatively, is like, that burned him out, and he needs to take it back to his own thing, and this is going to be his method of doing that, and whatever.
And as long as it's done right. What's happening with the show? Is it
2019 will be the last season to come out.
Okay, so is that one season this year and then there's another next year?
No season this year. They just
last season in 2019. I think it's 6 episodes. Each one are like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh. I have no idea. I have so little idea what's going on with the show and everything.
Right, yeah, and it's not even close to where, like, season 7 was like nowhere close to the books. Yeah.
No, I mean,
too.
Like, I don't, well, yeah, no show spoilers, but, like, they've just diverged so, like, there are people that are, like, and I think George has said this, too, like, there are people that are dead in the books that are alive in the show, and vice versa, and like, what they're doing cannot happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Or they're non-existent, there's whole groups of people that are just non-existent on the show.
Or
it's just a whole different thing.
Oz could show up in the books.
I mean, I guess some things can be given to different characters without changing the overall narrative, I guess. But I don't know.
I think it's just going to end up being very different at the end of the day.
I just hope the ending is different, because I do expect I'll find out how it ends. I've been doing really well with spoilers. I've found out very few things.
Yeah, like, non-show watchers, like, as far as book spoilers, like, it might get close, but until we actually get a book, like, I'll take the show as, like, canon, because, they have more information from George than I do, so...
Right. But that's the thing, I hope the ending is going to be completely different, because I'll probably hear what the ending is. I really don't want to, but I'll probably hear major show book points at some, I don't know.
But if we don't see the ending of the books, won't you feel, like, cheated out of an ending?
Hmm? Say again?
If we don't get the books...
I'll watch the show either when all the books are out or when George dies.
Yes.
I'll watch the show. You're not watching either, Marie?
No. I stopped, I think, probably the same time as you. We'll get together and watch it with Alix.
Yay. I think I saw one more season than you.
Yeah, I saw season 4, I think.
I think 4 is the last one I've seen.
But I was seeing it with friends, and they they were so annoyed with me because I just would be like, this makes no sense, and this doesn't make any sense either, and this is wrong, and so
yeah, I was the same, and I got annoyed with myself, so I stopped watching.
I don't know, this is kind of the thing I enjoyed the most about the show, being like, this character has the wrong hair color, and we're going to keep it. But I kind of get a kick out of it. I think no one wants to watch these things with me, but that's okay. You guys will get it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, speaking of hair color, like, spoiler alert, but Tyrion's hair is actually now brown.
They just
Is there like a reason for it, or is that just like...
Well, yeah, they got sick of dyeing it after season 1.
Okay,
yeah, they look terrible anyway.
Well, Jaime's hair's also gotten darker, and I think it's also like a visual representation of them both, like, kind of going farther away from the Lannister party line.
Sure.
Please. They're just lazy.
They just got so bitter that their hair darkened.
Yeah, my hair darkened when I'm sad.
Just through the strength of their mind, they willed their hair to darken.
That's totally what happened.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
And then Varley crashed the party.
That's right.
It's not a party until Varley shows up.
To be fair, Jock, Julia arrived and said someone needs to add Varley to this party because he's drunk. That's how it happened.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
I think at some point we're gonna finish the last chunks of audio we need for the FCR of Hedge Knight, and then that should come out.
Ooh.
It's been in the works for what, a year?
What? It's been not as long as the serial podcast, but it's been
over a year. Because I recorded that in my old apartment, and we've been in our house for about a year.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I know Paul's been really busy.
Read anything?
No, because I don't think Patrick has ever responded, so...
Patrick fell off the side of the planet. Where is he?
Yeah, I know.
Parenting?
He has a lot of baby makings, so...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, aren't they old enough to be sent out to pillage and he can start podcasting again?
Maybe the smallest one isn't quite at pillaging age just yet. I'm sure
She must be like a few months old.
Well, I actually think that's part of the problem. I think he's, 4 months old or so now, so he's starting to go out and pillage, and Patrick has to supervise him.
Apprentice pillager.
Yeah.
Supervised pillaging has got... Oh, there's so many more. I need to do more Cards Against Humanity cards for this. There needs to be a supervised pillaging card.
There needs to be a 3-headed kitten card as well. Just saying.
And another poetry slam battle.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm on it. That's
good. We need to play against him, actually.
Agreed.
Supervised pillaging should not have to be okay.
Guys, Bina's going to be stateside this week.
When? Where?
Chicago.
How come Chicago gets all the good stuff?
I mean, you got there last summer. You got that. That's not a... I mean...
Yeah,
It's not a commodity.
I got it for like a day and a half last year.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
You were all jealous. I mean, I am.
At the Ritz-Carlton.
I think I see Bina less than like some people on different continents. So.
That was my favorite thing. We call Varley up and we're video chatting with him on Skype, and he's like playing in bed because it was late there, and Bina's like, and this is Sarah, and Sarah like hadn't even talked to him like on a call or anything, so she's like, oh,
Dr.
hi.
Blood?
Yeah, Dr. Blood, yeah.
Yep.
Her reaction was so funny.
Yeah, well, I think there'll be lots of social media postings about Bina's trip.
Yeah, I can't wait for the big world mood in...
Oh my god, World Mood! I'm so excited about World Mood!
Yeah.
There's so many more people coming than I
jealous.
expected.
Who's coming?
Probably.
Me.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Amber Rocks.
Amber Rocks is coming.
Because like a few people have said they'd look into it.
Yeah.
I think Casey is considering it.
Yeah,
She
I think so
might, yeah.
Patrick is considering it, but it coincides with Viking moves, so I don't think we have a chance of getting Patrick.
But I thought it was gonna be Amber and like European people, but it looks like we're gonna get
Maybe, yeah.
more. It's so cool.
Wasn't Amber trying to convince Macau as well?
Yeah.
I think Amber's trying to convince everybody to come.
Anyone who will listen.
Archibald said
Great.
he is tentatively interested.
Is anyone going to Ice and Fire Con?
Yeah, I
That's too
am.
far away.
Yeah, same as Marie.
Birthday, I think.
So yeah, I mean, right now it's me, Casey, Greg. I think Adam said he was coming. I don't know
A few more should be going too.
Right, a few more.
Where is it this year? It's in Chicago, right? Or somewhere?
Ohio, outside
Nice.
Cincinnati or Columbus, one of the two.
You know what the best part about Cincinnati Airport? It's in Kentucky.
And yeah, Zach will be there, and I assume Alix will come again.
When is it? In April?
Yeah, last weekend of April.
I mean, that's...
I can't do it.
You see, you have
Yeah.
Ice and Fire Con to meet up every
But we
year.
have World Mood.
Yeah.
Right.
Really much better, obviously.
It is gonna be better. Guys, can I
It's
just
not a
do...
competition, but it is going to be better.
Oh, I know. It's the smell of backstory. Flashback.
When I
Figure
read
how
the
that-
intro I had written for this podcast, I read "We are the Vassals of Kingsgrave," and I thought about David pronouncing the Vassals of Kingsgrave wrong on his first hosting podcast. It almost made me laugh.
What's that?
He said Vassals of Kingsgrade.
Oh, yeah.
And he kept going, and then he started being like, did I say Vassals of Kingsgrade? It was a great moment.
Yeah, he's been a good addition to the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I can't believe I told him that on Friday, but I can't believe that he felt it was easier to actually go to Boston Moods and meet people there than to first join a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. I'm super comfortable with meeting up with random online strangers, but even so, like podcast. I guess podcasting is more scary in the sense that there's other people listening as well, and you don't know who's listening, and it's out there. Whereas at a meetup, worst case scenario, you just like leave again, and you never see anyone again, and nothing remains from this meeting. Whereas once you're on a
yeah, but like I'm nervous about meeting people that I already know and I've already met in real life. So meeting
exactly.
people you've never even talked to online is.
I mean, I meet up with
terrifying.
random online strangers all the time, so I guess I feel differently about it. I'm still alive, so. I don't know, this is amazing.
Yeah.